Welcome to this explainer. Today, we are tackling what is honestly the ultimate bottleneck for pretty much every lifelong learner, taking notes. You know, if your study sessions feel like this frustrating, hand-cramping transcription exercise, you're probably doing it wrong. But don't worry, we're going to completely transform your approach into a highly efficient, active learning machine. Let's get right into it.
I mean, we've all been there, right? You sit down, you get your 14 different pastel highlighters out, and you spend hours crafting this aesthetically pleasing masterpiece of a notebook. You feel insanely productive. But then you get into the exam hall, sit down, look at the paper, and completely blank when it actually counts. Or maybe you've meticulously copied every single word the teacher said, but when it's time to actually revise, just looking at that massive wall of text feels completely overwhelming. Look, if this sounds familiar, I want you to know the problem absolutely is not your work ethic. It's just that you might not be taking notes effectively. The absolute biggest trap we fall into is what's called the note-taking illusion. So many of us act like human tape recorders, trying to catch every single word. But that's a huge mistake. The reality of effective learning, the actual solution here, requires a complete mindset shift. You need to focus entirely on capturing the main ideas, the crucial definitions, the core examples, and most importantly, how all those concepts relate to each other. Basically, you have to stop translating and start translating the information. Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll look at the note-taking illusion. Then, we'll open up the master toolbox with 5 proven systems. After that, we'll cover the mistakes you must avoid, and finally, the rules for better notes. All right, Section 1, the note-taking illusion. I want you to let this idea really sink in. Your notes are a learning tool, not a copy of your textbook. Seriously, good notes have very specific jobs to do. They need to actively help you understand ideas while you're learning them, not just after. They need to help you retain that info for a significantly longer period of time. They must allow you to revise quickly right before exams. And, they need to organize your scattered thoughts clearly. If your notes are just a carbon copy of a book or a PowerPoint, well, they're failing at all of those jobs. Moving on to Section 2, 5 proven note-taking systems. Let's open up that master toolbox. First up is an absolute classic. This is widely considered one of the most effective systems out there for university students, the Cornell Method. It works chronologically, and you divide your page into 3 specific sections. So during your class, you take your main notes in a large section on the right side of the page. Then, after the class is over, you move to the narrow column on the left and jot down important questions or keywords that relate to those main notes. Finally, you move to the bottom section and write a quick summary of the entire page in just 3 or 4 sentences. And this brilliantly illustrates why the Cornell Method is basically the revision king. It literally forces active recall. Because of how you set up the page, reviewing becomes incredibly powerful. Instead of just passively rereading a giant wall of text, you can physically cover up the right side of the page, your main notes, and force your brain to answer the questions or define the keywords you wrote on the left. You're testing yourself. You're retrieving the answers from your memory, which research shows time and time again is vastly superior to passive reading. Now, the second system is the outline method. This is probably the easiest and honestly most commonly used method out there. You start with a broad main topic. Underneath that, you drop your headings, then subheadings, and finally your specific supporting points or examples. It's entirely built on a clear, clean hierarchy. If you're studying subjects like anthropology, sociology, history, political science, or literature, basically anywhere concepts nest inside one another perfectly, the outline method is going to be your absolute best friend. Our third system is mind mapping, and wow, this is the ultimate tool for all the visual learners out there. Instead of working top to bottom like a traditional list, you write your main topic right in the dead center of a blank page. From there, you draw branches outward for different core ideas and smaller branches off of those for the tiny details. You completely ditch the long paragraphs in favor of single keywords, bold arrows, and maybe even small drawings. Mind mapping is incredible because it lets you see the exact relationship between multiple connected concepts all at a single glance. It's like a giant puzzle mapped out for your brain. Let's move to our 4th framework and see how this builds, the chart method. Sometimes paragraphs and outlines are just way too slow, especially when you need to directly compare information side by side. By creating a table with columns, say comparing a theory, its founder, the main idea, and common criticisms, you make your future revision infinitely faster. It is the absolute fastest way to quickly contrast historical events, competing research methods, or differing scientific theories. The 5th and final system is flow notes. This one is a highly flexible, super dynamic approach. Instead of copying rigid sentences, you're strictly writing ideas in your own words. You're using rapid arrows, diagrams, symbols, and quick, short explanations. As your teacher or the video explains a topic, you connect ideas organically on the page, exactly as they make sense to you in that specific moment. It essentially trains you to process information in real time. You're forced to think while you learn, rather than just acting as a human printer. Now, it definitely takes practice, but it massively improves your overall comprehension. Okay, let's pivot to section 3, mistakes you must avoid. Time for a punchy reality check. Let's rapid-fire some of the most common errors students make that totally sabotage their memory. First up, copying everything directly from the presentation slides word for word. Just don't do it. Second, prioritizing aesthetics, making your notes look like a literal work of art, but then never actually reviewing them. Third, using way too many colors until the page is just this confusing rainbow where nothing stands out at all. Fourth, taking the notes and then throwing the notebook in your bag, never to be looked at again after class. And finally, mindlessly writing down complex phrases without actually understanding what they mean.
Think of this as a visual palate cleanser and the ultimate reality check for your study habits. Understanding is greater than decoration, always. No exceptions. If you have to choose between a messy notebook where you actually deeply grasp the concepts and a flawless color-coded masterpiece where you don't understand a single word you wrote, choose the messy one. Comprehension will always be infinitely more valuable than a beautiful notebook.
Finally, we enter section 4, rules for better notes. To really get the most out of your notes, always try to write in your own words to prove you actually understand the concept. Use abbreviations constantly. That'll save you a ton of time during fast lectures. When it comes to highlighting, show a little restraint, okay? Only highlight the absolute most important need-to-know info. Always leave some blank space on the page so you can add clarifying points later on. And above all, test yourself using your notes instead of just rereading them over and over. Oh, and keep your notebooks neatly organized by subject and date. Remember, the best notes in the world are simply the ones you actually open up and use. So the absolutely crucial point here is the number 24. No matter which note-taking system you choose from our toolbox, the golden rule of studying is that you must review your newly taken notes within 24 hours of writing them. If you let it go past a day, the natural forgetting curve sets in, and you lose a massive percentage of what you just heard. But a quick review within that first 24-hour window, that locks the information into your brain and saves you hours of frustrating relearning down the road. So, taking a look at the methods we discussed today, which one will you try first? Committing to a new system might feel a little uncomfortable at first, sure, but ask yourself this. If you keep taking notes the exact same way you always have, will you ever actually bridge the gap between working hard and working smart? It's time to stop transcribing your education and start translating it. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer.